Hello and welcome to our latest edition of Storytime with Sterling. Dan Hartenbrook filling in for Steve, but the real star of the show is always here, Sterling McGinn. Sterling, how are things this week?
Well, pretty good.
What do you got for us on Storytime this week?
Well, I thought I'd talk about how I started collecting and researching Newberry history. I did a editorial piece a couple weeks ago in our newspaper, and I thought I would just talk a little bit about it because it's been a big part of my life for 15 plus years.
You've been at it a long time, started at a very young age, and have grown into Newberry's greatest photo collector and historian. What led to you getting started?
Well, I was always interested in collecting old antique things, and I really think it got started when my grandfather he's a retired northern lower lumberman and farmer, and when I would go visit him in the summer or any time when I was really little, I always wanted to go for a tractor ride with him, and he'd be disking up the field, and we'd be looking down, and we'd notice an old bottle or something, and we'd stop the tractor, and surprisingly, it survived being run over with a disc. So started collecting a bottle here, and so I got interested in old bottles and anything old. And my parents, we used to have to, anytime we go by an antique store, we had to stop. And I think it just happened, I started seeing old postcards of Newberry, and I thought, that's kind of cool. I grew up in Newberry, and I just kind of went hand in hand with collecting old things. And so I started getting a few postcards here and there, and so in the meantime, there was a gentleman by the name of Jim Dwyer placing old photos in the Newberry News as views to the past, and I loved the Newberry News as a little kid. I always probably more interested in looking at the pictures maybe, but so I'd go through the paper and I would see these views to the past by courtesy of the Jim Dwyer collection. I thought, somebody's interested in the same thing. So my dad was a wrestling coach here for many years, and so I knew who Jim Diem was, the editor of the Newberry News, and because he used to drive my dad's wrestling team to all the matches out of town. And so I asked Jim one day, I said, who is this Jim Dwyer, and how can I get a hold of him? And he said, he kind of got me on the path to how to get a hold of him. And so one day, I think it was in the winter of 2005, I always liked to help my dad. I never did wrestle, but I always liked to assist him with his home matches, and I always went on the road with him too. And well, I took a break and I wandered into the library, and there was this guy. He was looking at old Newberry News archives on the microfilm, and turned out it was the Jim Dwyer.
One and only.
Yes. So after meeting up with him, he had started the annual historic photo show, I think in 2003, if I remember right. So I wasn't around for the first few shows, but after meeting up with him, I've created a wonderful friendship that's lasted 15 plus years now.
You've gotten photos from all different walks of life in Newberry, all different eras and generations and topics. And is there any particular topic or subject that you really look to collect for more than others in your photo collection?
I like downtown views, especially to try to the earliest one that we've ever come across was about 1885, 1886. I really like downtown scenes because it really shows the evolution from the dirt streets and board sidewalks to when they had the pavement, and then from the late teens and up until 1934, they had the street lights down the center of Newberry Avenue, and then they were removed after that. It's really neat to see the evolution of downtown Newberry and the businesses and how the cars used to park on an angle. Charcoal Iron Company, State Hospital. There really isn't a favorite topic. Anything old, and I collect, not only do I collect photos and postcards, but anything old related to Newberry, old advertising thermometers, calendars, you name it. Anything that's older of Newberry has been an interest. But the thing that really has been one of the most important parts of my life is presenting the old photo shows with Jim Dwyer. I have met so many people, and it's such a it's a lot of work setting up the photos, but it's a thrill to come to be there when people come in and look at photos of their relatives, of themselves, to just learn about how Newberry got started and all the different businesses and events. All the work is really worthwhile.
How has the photo show really kind of changed and grown from your perspective over the years of having it?
Well, the first few years I wasn't there just because at that time I guess I wasn't interested in exactly the photos and postcards. Jim started out, I'm trying to remember, I think the first one was in the old bank building, and then it was in the gym for 2 years, and then back into the first year I was present and helping with the show was in the old bank building, and I thought that was just a wonderful venue to have the photo show. And it just seems like every year it grew, and unfortunately this 2020 we weren't able to have it because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it really, reflecting on it, I really missed the people.
I know one of the things that always amazes me when you come across a new photo or you're going through your collection, I always ask you where you find this stuff.
Well, it's internet sources, people just knowing that Jim and I collect photos, the internet sources and people that know that we will preserve it and that it'll be shared with people in the community and elsewhere. Just people stop in here at the Newberry News and say, I found this, or it's all over. It's amazing. Postcards, I know Jim and myself have bought postcards from California, Newberry-related postcards as far away as California, Florida.
How many photos do you think are in the collection of the McGinn collection and the Dwyer collection? If you had to take a rough guess.
Oh my goodness, thousands. And it's always fun because if either Jim or myself find something that we have never seen before, we call each other and then meet up and it's just amazing the stuff that when you think you found it all, there's more. And you'll find a big collection of for example, both Jim and I have gone to the Kalamazoo Postcard Show, and I think the first couple of years I went, there was a dealer who I'd met through other antique shows that was big into selling antique postcards, and he had discovered a photo album from the early 1900s that had belonged to a nurse at the Upper Peninsula Hospital, which was later known as Newberry State Hospital. And they were all one-of-a-kind views of the inside of the state hospital, mostly of the employees, some of buildings. And I think there was over 100 postcards that were in that album. And I know the first couple of years I went with my parents, I bought quite a few, and then I think the third year, Jim and I were there together, and we both bought out every postcard. But it's just stuff like that. Somebody comes across an album of one-of-a-kind Newberry State Hospital postcards, and it really adds to the collection.
One thing that's really amazing, and you mentioned it, is people know that you'll preserve it and take care of it. What are some of the important things that you do or that you would recommend people to do if they've got, some of these old collectible photos they're hanging on to, how to keep them in great shape?
Make sure they're not in the light. A lot of the I have postcard boxes, and Jim does too, and to keep the postcards in the boxes. That's what we do, or in albums. But one thing that, make sure you don't have your old photos in those sticky albums. Those will destroy your photos. The albums where they stick in, they have the plastic page. Get rid of those. I don't have any of those in my house. There's just simple things. I've taken a few classes and I've studied up on how to preserve photos. One of the main things is, make sure that they're not in those sticky albums, that if they're in old frames, the cardboard on the back tends to burn the back of leaves the strips of the cardboard, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but some of the old photos that I have that I wanted to preserve the old frames. I had a professional framer put like a acid-free backing so it doesn't eat away the back of the photo. So there's all kinds of things to how to preserve photos.
Hopefully 2021 is the year that the photo show returns. I know I love it. In years past, promoting it, we've been able to go through some collections on the radio and seeing sitting next to you here at the office some of your old stuff that you're always going through. So I would love to see it back, and hopefully we get that photo show back, because it's a great event for the community.
Great event for the community, and it's also helps. It's a fundraiser for the Common Education Foundation. They sponsor the show. But I just wanted to reflect on how collecting photos has really changed my life. And like I say, it's hard to remember exactly how, but I think, finding old bottles with my grandfather and starting to collect antiques led to finding the old photos, meeting up with Jim, and sharing, having both of us having the same interest has really been a great. Jim and I have had a great friendship for 15 years, and he really was he's the one that started the annual historic photo show, and then after a few years I got involved, and I've also been able to be a part of the logging museum. At one time I was on the board, and I'm still on the board of the Historical Society, and working here at the Newberry News. I can write historical articles that I can use some of the photos to go along with to help tell the story. So it's just been a great part of my life. I just wanted to reflect on it.
Well, we look forward to seeing all the great things you come up with in the future, covering the past. Storytime with Sterling every week. Make sure you keep following us for more great stories.